Hey guys, this is Wes and welcome to your 20-second Java tutorial. Today we're going to go over formatting outputs. And I know we've covered print line and the print methods. However, sometimes we want to have greater control over the output of our methods. And that's where the Printf method comes into play. It's slightly more complex, but you have more control over how exactly you want it to look. So we're just going to hop right into it, and I'm going to type it all out and then I'll explain it afterwards. So we'll go to system.out.print. Instead of print line, we print f. And the way this works is, let's just say we're going to type in a string and it says the answer for, and this is where it gets a little weird, percent decimal 3f divided by percent d is percent decimal 2 f. Then we close that, and then for the arguments we are going to put 10.11 comma 3 comma 10.11 divided by 3. And we're just going to run this real quick. I know right now you guys are probably scratching your heads, but it says the answer for 10.110 divided by 3 is 3.37. It seems really complicated, but it's actually not. These right here are actually, they're basically placeholders. They're called format specifiers. Basically, they all start with a percent sign. So this is just indicating the start of one. Percent decimal 3f is replaced by 10.11. Percent d is replaced by 3, and percent decimal 2f is replaced by the quotient of 10.11 divided by 3. They always begin with a percent sign, and they always end with a converter, such as a D or an F. As you can see, an F, a D, an F, and these are called converters. A D means it will be replaced by an integer or a byte or a short, and an F stands for floating point, which is the same thing as a double. All it means is it's going to have a decimal point. So as you can see, a float right here, which is a double, it's replaced by a double. This right here, a D, is going to be replaced by an integer, a 3, and percent f, which is the converter, is another float, which will be replaced by the quotient of 10.11 divided by 3. So that's basically that right there. In between the percent sign and the converter, so in between the percent sign and the F or the D, it is optional. As you can see, this one doesn't have anything between the percent sign and the converter, but you can add additional information, and this information is called a flag. Flags basically indicate how many decimal places that the double will have, or it can have the total width of the output. And I'm gonna show you more examples, so this will make sense. This right here, as you can see, we're gonna go to the 0.3f again. 0.3 is the flag that indicates we want to display a number with 3 decimal places. That's why down here 10.11 right here is actually displayed as 10.110. Okay, so I showed you a flag that shows you that dictates how many decimal places will be past the decimal point right here with decimal 3. I'm going to show you another flag when we don't have a decimal number. We can just put here, I'll show you that too. Let's copy this right here just to speed up the process. I'm gonna paste this, and we are just going to make sure they're all like within a string. It doesn't work, so if I were to remove these double quotation marks right here, it wouldn't work. It'd give you an error. So the way we're going to do this is percent, because they all start with a %8. That is the flag. That is going to tell you the total width of the entire display. And I'll show you D, because we're going to be using an integer, comma, and then the integer we're going to be using is 12. So when we save this and run it, as you can see, it's all on the same line, but the way this worked is from here to here is 8 spaces. So the flag right here tells the compiler that from the 6 spaces in front of the number 12, giving it a total width of 8 spaces to the decimal point. So from here all the way to the end of 12 is 8 spaces. We could do 10, and when we save that, it'd be 10 spaces all the way to the 12. We can do, let's do 55, and I'll show you that it makes a bigger space. So as you can see, from here all the way to here is 55 spaces. That is a flag. So let's do this right here. We can do we'll change this to decimal 9, so there's gonna be 9 decimal places past the decimal point instead of 3. So when we save this, I guess it's saved, run, as you can see, there's 9 spaces right here, and then the flag that we changed for the this one right here is 55 spaces from here to the end of 12. There's also another converter that I can show you, and it just moves it to a new line. So say we wanted 12 on a separate line as this one, we could just do %9f, and since it is a converter, we can put it right here, %n, and that just means new line. Oh, okay, yeah, hold on. So we're just going to make a new one. We're going to paste another printf function method, and we are going to say %, because they all start with a %d, because we're going to be using an integer, %n, this means a new line, and then %d. And unlike me, make sure they're all within double quotation marks or it won't work. So %, comma, and then we're going to use 12, comma, 3. And so what this is going to do is it's going to use 12, and then it's going to go to a new line, and then it's going to put 3 on the next line. So file, save, run. As you can see up here, it had 12 on the same line, so it had 12 right here, and then it went to 3 right here. So if we delete these, I'll show you how that works. See, 12 and then 3. We can have other flags too. So say we have it's called a thousands separator, and the way it works is, as you know, they all start with a percent. It's just a comma, that's all it is. So D, and the number we're going to be using is 1 2 3 4 5, and all this is going to do is D is going to be replaced with the integer 1 2 3 4 5, and then it's just going to put a comma in the correct position. So let's run this. 12,345. If we want to take it one step further, we can use a flag for decimals. So we could say decimal 2 right here, but we want the comma in front of that. So we have the percent, because they all start with a percent, a comma as the thousand separator, 0.2 for the flag, and it's going to be 2 decimal places past the beginning decimal, and then D for it's going to be an integer. So we're just going to use decimal 6789. And it's going to add a comma in the appropriate position, and then it's going to cut the decimal places off to the appropriate length. So we'll run this. Forgot to change the converter to an F because it is no longer an integer, it is now a double. So we will save that and run it, and then it says 12,345, and then it cut and rounded it up, so it's now decimal 68 instead of decimal 6789. I know you're gonna basically have to memorize a lot of that stuff. Once you've memorized it, it's not very hard. It can be confusing at first for sure, but it's definitely not hard. Just remember that they're basically placeholders. They always begin with the percent signs, and they always end with a converter. The flag is the data that's in between, is not necessary, it is optional, but it can tell you how many decimal places past the decimal point you want, or it can tell you how long you want the total display of output to be. So that'll be it for formatting outputs. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.